Hi, this video will demonstrate subtracting real numbers. And we just did a video on adding real numbers, so please refer to that first, because what I'm going to advise is when you get ready to subtract real numbers, and again, when we're talking about real numbers, we're talking about numbers that can take on any value, both positive and negative. My first advice is to go ahead and turn it into an addition problem, and then your rules of addition apply. So if you want to know the rules of addition, please watch that video. The other thing you need to remember is our little saying that remember in math class, two wrongs make a right. In other words, if you have two negative signs right next to each other, they turn into a positive sign. Okay, so here I've got 5 minus 7, but what we're going to do is actually turn that into an addition problem. It's the same thing as saying 5 plus a negative 7. Okay, and now when I write it that way, my rules of addition apply. I subtract this. I have two different signs. One's positive, one's negative. I subtract the smaller from the larger. So 7 minus 5 is 2. And I keep the sign of the larger. 7's larger than 5, so it's going to be negative. Same thing here. I can rewrite it as an addition problem. I'm going to have negative 3 plus a negative 13. Again, now my rules of addition apply. These two have the same sign. They're both negative, so I'm going to add them together. 13 and 3 is 16. And I'm going to keep the sign, so it's going to be a negative 16. I even have a fraction problem here. Again, my first step, I'm just going to rewrite it as an addition problem. I got negative 1/2 plus a negative 3/4. Okay? And so now my rules of addition apply. I'm going to add them together and keep the sign because they both have a negative sign, same sign. But in this particular case, I've got to find my least common multiple. So I'm looking for the smallest number that both 2 and 4 go into. Well, 2 goes into 4, so that is the smallest. And so now I have minus 1/2, and I need to convert that to something over 4. Okay? 2 times 2 yields 4, so I want to multiply the numerator by 2 as well. 1 times 2 yields 2. Remember to keep the same sign, so it's going to be a minus 2/4. So I can actually rewrite this as minus 2/4, okay, plus a minus 3/4. Remember when you're adding or subtracting fractions, okay, you're going to keep the denominator, so I'm going to keep the 4 and do the operation in the numerator. I've got minus 2 plus a minus 3. They have the same sign, so I'm going to add them together and get 5 and keep the sign, which is negative. The only other rule that we must apply for fractions is that when we have two negative fractions, for real numbers, subtracting real numbers, is when we have two negative signs, we need to turn that into a positive. All right, so here is what I'm talking about. Notice that I have two negative signs right next to each other. So I can actually rewrite this as 7 plus 10. And now we all know that positive 7 plus positive 10 is going to yield a positive 17. All right, and that is what I mean by rule number 2. When you have two negative signs right next to each other, they become a positive sign. Two wrongs make a right in math class. So now I can rewrite this second one as minus 3. I've got the two negatives right next to each other, so I'm going to write plus 5. Okay? And once again, I subtract the smaller from the larger because they have two different signs. My rules of addition now apply. 5 minus 3 yields 2. And I keep the sign of the larger. 5 is larger than 3, so I'm going to keep the positive sign. So remember, when we're subtracting, first turn it into an addition problem. And the only other thing you need to keep in mind is that when you have two negatives right next to each other, go ahead and turn it into a positive.